trophies are. Do it. I think everybody pretty much knows that these videos that I place on Facebook are made right here in Peoria, Illinois. And Peoria's had an interesting history as far as weight training. Probably the first training center in this city was the YMCA, and that was built in 1890, and then it was destroyed by fire in 1895. They built another one at 6th and Franklin Streets in 1911. And then the one that most of us that are still living remember is the big YMCA on Hamilton, which is where Bob Rosa trained as a kid, and I did a little bit. But that was built in 1955, and now it's called the Dream Center. Now the first commercial gym was Silver's Gym on Monroe, and that later became Jim's Gym. But now Bob Rosa, in 1974, opened Central Illinois Weightlifting Gym on Knoxville. He was 25 years old, and I don't know what year he moved down to Adams Street, but that's where he's been most of his career. He's still there. And what's amazing is that he's had 131 world records come out of that gym, and how many gyms can say that? IPF world champions like Mike Bridges, Bob Bridges, Freddie Higgins, and not only powerlifters but bodybuilders as well. Greg Ulrich placed 10th in 1986 at the Mr. America, and there are 50 states, right? So the place 10th is, I think it's amazing. This is really funny, but yeah, I probably shouldn't even tell anybody about this, but I think enough people know about it. That back in the early 70s, I mean, you couldn't call Cybex on the phone or Reflex Fitness Products and order equipment because it didn't exist. And you've heard that Joe Gold had his equipment made in a garage. I think it was his garage. It was all homemade. Well, Bob Rosa told me that he did pretty much the same thing, except that I can't remember if it was Mossville Caterpillar or Mapleton Caterpillar was being built, and he went down there and stole all the steel that was lying out on the ground, and he had all that welded up to be the equipment for his gym, and that's how he got started. And a lot of that stuff's down there to this day, and you go look at it, you can see that it's homemade, and it served its purpose. I mean, we all use. I mean, gosh, just hundreds and hundreds of people use that stuff over the years, and people won big titles, and so it was effective, very effective equipment. But how it came to be, that's hilarious. I mean, now this story is almost unbelievable, but I know it's true because Bob Rosa told me that it's true. He swears that this is true. That when he was on Knoxville, he opened up next door to Phil Keppel's karate school, and a lot of us know Charlie Hayes from Galesburg in the band Even Steven, the guy with the long hair and the big arms, and he was quite a bencher, but I guess he squatted too. And we've all heard of the Bridges flare and this wide stance, but according to Bob Rosa, everybody back then squatted narrow. And I'm looking at this article I wrote, and Bob tells about how this wide stance came to be, and he swears it started at his gym. He says that Charlie had come over to squat, and just from habit, from in his karate class, he sat down in what we call a shikodachi, which is a very wide stance with the toes turned out. And that's, how the wide stance got started. And then Mike Bridges took that and turned his toes in. That was the knees out. And that was the Bridges flare. And he said, Michael swear that's not true, but he said, I'm telling you, it's true. And that's how that wide stance started. Now, as the years went on, you know, Central Illinois Weightlifting Gym got quite a reputation as being the hardcore gym. You know, there weren't a lot of gyms around, and you know, between Chicago and St. Louis, so Central Illinois was it. And so, you know, you've all heard of the WWF, the predecessor of the WWE. Well, when the wrestlers would come into town, initially they wanted to know. They'd ask the locals, where is there a serious gym in Peoria? And they'd all say Central Illinois Weightlifting Gym. You know, so these, you know, I happened to be running the gym for Bob from 1985 through 1987. And the first group showed up, and I remember two of the wrestlers. There weren't very many at first time. They were Axe and Smash, the Demolition. And Bob had instructed me. Bob was working another job, so you know, I was there by myself. Bob had instructed me that all the wrestlers, you know, they train for free, right? And then we'll get free tickets, right? Okay, so you know, I told them they could work out for free, and so they came back, you know, several times. And probably one of the last times that I saw them in there was when they had a big show that they were going to actually film a 4-hour television program down at the Peoria Civic Center, and there were about 30 wrestlers in there. And of course, Bob was working another job, and I was in there by myself, and the place was just packed. You know, we had Ricky the Steamboat Dragon in there, Axe and Smash. We had Jake the Snake was there, and oh my gosh, the Islanders were there. And anyway, we had a character. I guess, you know, all you guys locally know Mark Durst. He's since moved to Texas, but he was a bodybuilder, and he liked to get attention, you know, and he got it in his head that he wanted to be a WWF wrestler. So he grabs me, and he's going to try and throw me on the floor to show these guys, you know, his ability, because there were some managers in there from the WWF. And you know, I grabbed a hold of him, and then we both went down on the ground, and my glasses went on the floor, and you know, they caught on right away. And you know, one of the managers came over, and he says, you know, come on, we're gonna go to lunch. And he, you know, he told him at lunch, he says, you know, you do what we tell you to do. If you know, the first couple of years you're gonna lose, you know. And I'll never forget, Mark came back, sad sack. He was just so disappointed, and you know, that went right down the toilet, and he never talked about that again. But that's a true story.